ठीक है, ओके ओके ठीक है, आई स्टार्टेड द स्ट्रीम, ओके या थैंक्स. Hi everyone. Hope you're able to see me. I have to wait for the students to join in because the streaming time is 9 o'clock. 9:30, I'm sorry. Hope you're able to see me. I have to wait for the students to join in because the streaming time is 9 o'clock. I'm fine, dear. I'm fine. How you all are doing? Hope you're enjoying your classes. Hope you're enjoying your classes. All right. Great. Hi, Karthik. I'm fine, dear. From 9:30 to 10:30 it will be a YouTube session. So every YouTube session uh, will be from 9:30 to 10:30. All right. You have your classes today, tomorrow. That's 13th and 14th, and then 16th and 17th. 4 days of YouTube sessions you have from 9:30 to 10:30, 1 hour. Yeah, in YouTube session there will be some seconds of lag. There will be some seconds of lag. I'm fine. Yeah, tomorrow you'll also have. Day after tomorrow you don't have. Then again on yeah 16th and 17th you'll have again. I came in your dreams. Thanks, dear. Hopefully I was teaching you economics in your dreams or terrorizing you with economics in your dream. Huh? Monty? Huh? Alright, hopefully I was not terrorizing you. It was not a nightmare. Candy is going to bed right now, dear. Okay. Sir, I created a poll in Telegram asking who is your favorite teacher. You won with a small margin from Rajivendra sir. Yeah, don't create such kind of polls here. In Yashas, every teacher is top notch. Every teacher is one of the best, and that's why we have tied up with one of the best platforms in India. That's Unacademy. So every teacher, well, you can consider them as a friend, philosopher, and a guide. All right. Don't conduct such kinds of poll. All right. Rajavardhan sir is also awesome. Anil sir is also awesome. Every teacher is awesome, isn't it? I'm fine, dear. I'm fine. All right. So let's begin the session. All right. But before we begin the session, I have to make some important announcements for those students who have not yet joined Unacademy. Clear. So what are these things that see? The special sessions on Unacademy are absolutely free. All right, special sessions, any kind of special session, whether it's on Unacademy platform or on YouTube, it's absolutely free for every student. So every student, why we provide special sessions? So that students can themselves realize the quality of teaching of different faculties, and they can decide then to join our channel. So there are two different types of subscriptions, plus and iconic subscriptions. In the plus subscription, you all know that we have India's top educators, we have live interaction of classes, structured courses, tests and quizzes and polls we conduct, all right, one to one, doubt clearing and everything. You all know about it. So, and it is for those students who have not been uh, part of Unacademy till now. And we have one more kind of a segment which is for iconic, wherein India's again top educators will be teaching you. Again, live interactive classes here will be here, but there will also be a personal coach. All right, you will get printed books and the hard copy of the books. Every test paper will be evaluated, and there will be discussion channels also, wherein the faculties will come and they will discuss any particular topic which is important for the students for every for every level of CA examination. Clear? And as far as uh, subscriptions are concerned, then if you join for 12 months, then it will be per month 1000 rupees you have to pay. For 12 months is 1500, and for 6 months you have to pay. If you join, you'll have to pay 2000 rupees. So depends upon you which plan you choose. Obviously, the longer is the plan, the better will be the pricing. And on top of that, you will get 10% off if you specifically use Yash's live code. All right, if you use this particular code, on top of that 2000, 1500, 1000, you will be getting additional 10% off. So what you're waiting for? Let's go ahead and start the sessions. Just crack it. All right, as we say. All right, we are here to crack the examination with flying colors, and we will hopefully do it. All right, all it requires consistency, perseverance, patience, and follow the some basic rules what the faculties tell you. So let's start with the fourth chapter of BCK, business and commercial knowledge. So it is a very important chapter. It basically this chapter is very informative, because you not only get to know about what the government does or does not do, or it does and does not do, and what is the what are the repercussions of it, what are the outcomes of it. At the same time, uh, why government does whatever policy it comes out with. All right, clear? All right, clear. So please students, I'm also reading out your chat on my phone, so keep the chat to the minimal. If you have any particular questions that you want to ask, you can just ask me then and there. All right, let's keep the chat civilized. As I say to all my students, we are living in a civilized society, so let's keep the chat civilized. Clear? All right. Chapter 3, I'll do it later on, everyone. If you are concerned about what will I do, chapter 3 I'll cover later on. I'll do the MCQs later on, dear. All your answers, the questions that you are asking, I've already answered you on the Unacademy platform, wherein we were having wonderful time. Chapter 3 will also be done. Nothing will be left. Don't worry about it. All right. When I'm there all the way. All right. All the way. Clear? What's bad, Ananya? PDF. Yeah. All right. Send the PDF in the Telegram. All right, I'll share the PDF in the Telegram with you guys. Later on I'll do it, but for now just pay attention on the screen. The moment the class is over, I'll share this PDF on the Telegram channel. All right, clear? Is that fine with you guys? You want it right now? All right, not bad. MCQs will be done, don't worry. Yes, sir. As I said, where there is chance, sir, you don't need to fear. All right, my students are the most courageous ones. So let's start. Now, I'll share the PDF after the class is over with you guys. Is that fine? All right. Now, government, what is a policy? What is a public policy? Every government policy is largely categorized as public policy. Now, what is the reference of this word public here? You see, in a democracy, government is elected by the people. All right. Democracy, in a democracy, government is elected by the people. They are the servants of the people. So we have elected them. So we have elected them for the reason to make our life better, to make our country a better place. All right. So that's why any policy that is taken or devised by the government is for the betterment of the people. Now somewhere down the line the implementation may be bad. That's a different thing. But policies are generally made by the government not to make our life miserable, not to make our life, uh, you know, uh, make it, troublesome, make our life better. Now, public policy, you see, there are various types of public policy. Various types of public policy. There are economic policy wherein government tries to do something with the economy with respect to GDP, the macroeconomic indicators that I'm talking about, the GDP, all right, the rate of inflation. Before that, we have monetary policy as well. All right, the GDP, the standard of living, national income, and so on and so forth. So economic policies we have. We have also socio-cultural policy, wherein we try to make the society a better place. For example, abolition of dowry. All right, abolition of dowry. All right, prevention of child trafficking act, and so on and so forth. Right, there are various kinds of policy like that. Through the act of parliament, we also abolished many draconian practices in our country. Then also there is environmental policy that is there to protect the environment from any damaging effect of of humans and of businesses. Clear. There is wildlife policy also protect the animals, right? So there can be different types of policy, but remember, sometimes government tries to not do something. So when government tries to not do something, that is also a policy. When government is deciding to let things play out all by itself, and government wants to see what is the end game, what is the result of it. So not any decision taken by the government could also be considered as a policy of the government. So you see here, what is public policy? Public policy means by which the government maintains order or addresses the needs of citizens. Needs of citizens, we have elected them through actions defined by in the constitution. Now remember, constitution is the most important document in any country, and every policy which should be within the definition of the constitution. All right, and also remember that in a public policy there is not only one instrument is at play. When I say government and when I say policy, there is a very big machinery wherein executive are there, legislatures are there, all right, courts are there, bureaucracy is there. All right, so from top down to the bottom, everybody is attached some way, somehow to the policy. All right, what Gabriel Amond said, he said political system as a set of interaction having structures. We have structures, no? Rajya Sabha, Vidhan Sabha, we have bureaucracy structure, Vidhan Parishad, if you go to the state level, each of which performs its functions in order to keep it ongoing concern. It is a set of processes that routinely converts input into output, just like a machine. In the production function in economics you studied, no? What is a machine? A most efficient machine is what? Which gives the maximum output from minimum input. All right, maximization of output through which you can decrease your cost of production, increase your profit margin. So that's like government is a machinery. Whatever input decision it takes, there is some output that government has already decided beforehand, and that output is nothing, you can call it as an outcome of the policy. Thomas R. Dye, what he says, public policy is whatever government chooses to do or not to do. Chooses to do or not to do. Richard Rowe says that public policy is not a decision. Remember, there is a difference between a decision and a public policy. Public policy have a bigger objective. For example, uh, government came up with Aadhaar. Government established an institution, UIDAI, right? Unique Identification Development Authority of India. So everybody will have an Aadhaar number, right? That is a public policy wherein you will be recognized according to a number, just like a social security scheme in US. That is a policy objective. The government has some objective to give subsidies to the people, to the poorest of the poor people through bank account to cut down the level of corruption. And easy transferability, transfer of resources can take place also. Okay. But when government says tomorrow that you have to link your PAN with your Aadhaar card, that is not a policy, that is simply a decision. Understand? Understood? That is not a policy, that is simply a decision. So when government says that you have to link your PAN card with Aadhaar card, that is a decision. Likewise, when government came up with GST, GST is considered as a revolutionary change in the tax structure, indirect tax structures in India. That is a policy because constitutional changes have to happen. Alright, the bill has to be passed both in the Lok Sabha and the Rajya Sabha. Constitution amendment has happened. But when government increases or decreases the rate of GDP, for that government will not go to the parliament to pass a bill again and again. Otherwise, government will have to always sit in the parliament 24/7. Alright. So when government says on a shampoo, I'm decreasing the GST from 18% to 12%, or 12% to 5%, that is not a policy, that is simply a decision which has been taken remaining, by staying within the act of the GST. Alright, Goods and Services Tax Act. Understood? The difference between policy and decision. So every decision is not a policy, but every policy will involve a lot of decision making. So public policy, according to them, is the summation of decisions followed by many. India is a pluralistic society. Therefore, there are many opinions. We have complex legal system where, as Dubai, laws are stringent but very, very simple. Now, simple doesn't mean always good. Simple doesn't mean always good. In Dubai, you have dictatorship. You could be autocratic. All right. In that case, the government in itself is not a government. It's somebody who is ruling over the people. Only for the namesake we say government, but that is not a government wherein which has not been elected by the people. So they don't have to go to the people and take every decision for their betterment. They can take many decisions for their own betterment, for their own welfare. So that's why decisions are taken easily. All right. But there is no accountability for those decisions. Here, every decision that the politicians take, they have to be accountable for that. Now, difference between a policy, decision and goal, will come to that later on. There are broadly, if you want to categorize policy, it can be divided into 4 different parts. Allocation policy. Now, what is allocation policy? You see, in your intermediate, I'll be teaching you about Richard Musgrave, and he said that there are 3 most important functions of the government. That is allocation function, all right, then redistribution function, that is another function, and market stabilization. But here, what do you mean by allocation? What do you mean by allocation? Just hold on. Let me set up the OneNote. All right. So, what do you mean by the allocation? You see, when I say allocation, it is the method through which government allocate the resources. For example, in the lowest, easiest way you can understand, your parent earns some money. Whether they are doing business or they are into services, they are professionals, they are doctors, engineers, scientists, chartered accountants, whatever they are, every now and then they earn some amount of money. Now they have a lot of responsibilities to run their household. They have to set aside some amount of money for your education, some amount of money for insurance, all right, some amount of money if they want to buy a house in future, some amount of money if they want to buy a car in future, and so on and so forth. So they are allocating. So in order to make their life sustainable and take care of any contingencies that can arise in future, they have to properly allocate their income, plan their income, properly allocate their expenditure, not income, expenditure, plan their expenditure. Because if we are not able to plan their expenditure, then either we end up spending too much of money on some activity and too less money on some other activity. There'll be a problem then. So likewise, when government allocates, so government what it does, government distributes the resources. Government does what? Government distribute resources. All right. There are various sources of income for the government. So in order to sustainably run the society, government will have to distribute the resources. Say for example, if the growth in the primary sector is not happening, all right, if say this is the primary sector, secondary sector and tertiary sector, that is the service sector. If suppose primary sector is growing at 4% of GDP, secondary sector is growing at 12% of GDP and tertiary sector is growing at 20% of GDP. All right. More or less this is how, I mean, it has on an average the India, our country has been growing from the last 20 years. Now tell me, when primary sector in India is generating only 4% of I mean it is increasing by only 4%. Now you should not add it, it will not come to 100% because I am talking about the growth rate. I am not talking about the contribution, I am talking about the growth rate. It is growing by 4%. If 50% of the people are directly dependent on agriculture and it is growing at 4%, do you think the government should allocate more money towards the production or increase in economic activity in the primary sector or in the secondary sector or in the tertiary sector? So government's priority should be allocate more money here. If suppose government has 1000 crore rupees, government will have lakhs of crores rupees, but say government has resources of 1000 crore rupees. So out of this 1000 crore rupees, don't you think government will try to spend 500 crore rupees here? Hypothetically, I'm taking this example. Then secondary sector is growing, and maybe it is at a relatively slower rate than the tertiary sector, but at a fast rate than the primary sector. So government may allocate, let's say 350 crore rupees here and then 150 crore in tertiary sector. This is allocation. Simple logic. Whichever sector needs more money, more push, government will have to allocate more money to that particular sector. So if suppose government says that farmers are not doing well, I need to give a lot of subsidy to the farmers. So government says, देखो, on fertilizer there is a subsidy, a free electricity government can give them to uplift the farmer, to increase the economic activity, to make their life better. I'm not saying that government should completely overlook or should not pay any attention to the secondary or tertiary sector. No, but the thing is, whichever sector is not doing good, I have to allocate money there. So that is the meaning of allocation. When government tries to allocate resources to different sectors of the economy. All right, allocate resources to different sectors. Now, after allocation, redistributive, which we call it distributive policy, but correct phrase is redistributive policy. What is redistributive policy and why social justice is written before it? All right. No, you just don't need to write it. All right. Don't worry. Don't worry. You don't need to write it. You just listen to me. This video will be available to you. All right. Till the date of your examination, you don't need to write. Just listen to me. That will be enough for you. Whatever you need to understand, it's already given here, everything. Wherever I need to explain you, I will explain it to you. All right. It's like for business economics, I know you are used to taking down all the class notes, every very hectic writing and everything, you have done it. So you are not actually able to adjust, sir, yahan pe. This way I will be able to cover more. I'll be able to tell you a lot. If you just listen to me, you'll be able to answer every question. Don't worry. And all right, at night sometimes happens. So all right, allocation policy. So now redistribution policy, we generally call it as redistribution policy. distribution policy. Clear. So what is redistribution policy? What is a redistribution policy? Now you see here, when government allocate resources, then automatically it will not happen that all those resources will go and create equality in the society. All right. When national income or GDP is increasing, growth is happening. But what is the difference between growth and development? They are not one and the same thing. Development is when the fruits of growth are shared by everybody. If not equally, then almost very close to being, very close to, equality. Right? We study about Gini index. We'll come to that later on. But if there is inequality of income in the society, then there is a problem. The society will not grow. So let's say government wants to promote agricultural sector, government wants to promote secondary sector and tertiary sector, government spent lakhs of crores of rupees on this particular sector. But industries are growing, agro industries are growing, everything is growing. Tell me, do you think the laborers in those organizations, in any organization, will they make more money, or do you think the promoters, shareholders and owners of the organization will make more money? At the end of the day, the benefit will go more to the owners of the business rather than the main worker of the business, the laborers and the salaried employee. So it means what will happen here, it will be lead to income inequality. But government already have allocated the resources. Now government doesn't have too much of money. So what the government will do, government will go for redistribution. And the best tool for redistribution, there are many, but one of the best tool is progressive taxation. What is progressive taxation? People who have higher level of income, as their income progresses, they have to pay higher amount of taxes. And the money received from taxation will be used for grassroots development. How do you think government is spending, lakhs of crores of rupees on Mahatma Gandhi National Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme, or Indira Awas Yojana, or National Rural Health Mission, or Sarva Shiksha Abhiyan, or National Literacy Mission, or Kasturba Gandhi Balika Vidyalaya Scheme, or in public distribution system Annapurna Yojana, wherein people are given on PDS systems, rice, pulses, sugar, wheat and everything at a highly subsidized place. Where do you think the government is getting money? Obviously, one of the sources is progressive taxation. Progressive taxation. Clear? So government will take from the top and distribute at the bottom. Then you will say that why is it so that government will always tax the rich people more? Because you see, the benefit of government policy has gone more to them. They have benefited more from the economic policy of the government, from the monetary policy of the government. So when they have benefited more, they got to pay more. It's a part of their social responsibility to pay taxes. They cannot avoid it. Because if the inequality continues to grow and there will be very few rich individuals who will own most of the resources and the rest of the country is poor, that country can never become developed. That country can never become developed. So that's what the social justice or distributive policy does. It creates equality or income equality. Clear? Now fiscal policy or budget is nothing but comes within the allocation policy. Through fiscal policy, one of the most important tool of fiscal policy is budget. So what the budget does, if you ask me what does the budget does, budget, every household has a budget, isn't it? Every household has a budget. So let's say government has some amount of money. Within the fiscal policy, the most important tool under fiscal policy is the budget. Now budget can be divided into what? Into capital or on the expenditure side, let me take it, expenditure and receipts. And then further expenditure can be divided into capital expenditure, all right, and revenue expenditure. This thing you have already studied in your accounts. This is how you categorize every type of expenditure, whether it's capital nature or whether it's revenue nature. Likewise, on the receipt side, there is capital receipts and revenue receipts. So budget is nothing but the financial statement of the government, as simple as that. Like when you prepare a final accounts for a company, you have to prepare a trial balance, PL account, trading account, cash flow statement, fund flow statement, and so on. Balance sheet, consolidated balance sheet, and so on and so forth. Likewise, government will have to also account for many things because government have lakhs of crores of resources. From where the government is receiving the resources and how the resources are spent, government will have to figure it out. Capital expenditure. What is capital expenditure? So, for example, government is constructing airport, new airport, greenfield airport, you can call it. All right, or when government is constructing new dam, new tunnel, new waterway, these are all capital expenditure. You are creating an asset for to help the country achieve its economic goal. Then what is capital receipts? Capital receipts, what are capital receipts? So capital receipts are any type of income that comes to the government. All right, say for example, government has taken a loan from international organization, that is a capital receipt. It will create a liability, but it's a capital receipt for the government. All right, that's a capital receipt for the government. Government is taking a loan. Capital expenditure, repayment of loan, that will happen. Now revenue expenditure. What is revenue expenditure? Recurring expenditure, maintenance of asset, expenditure of the government, payment of salary to the government officials, all right, payment of subsidies, so on and so forth. Recurring expenditure, these are. Revenue receipts. What are revenue receipts? Recurring income for the government from taxes, direct taxes and indirect taxes. All right, government also has many other sources of resources for sources of income. For example, public sector undertaking. We have more than 500 public sector undertaking. It means those organization, a business organization which are owned by the government. So income generated by the government from railways every year, ONGC, LIC, SBI, these are all public sector undertaking. It means the ownership is by the government. So all the resources received, all the income received from business activity of these organization will be considered again as revenue income. And obviously to run these organization, you have to incur revenue expenditure as well. And many times capital expenditure can also happen when government is expanding railway, when government is expanding some public sector undertaking, and so on and so forth. So in a very smallest, we are not going to study every detail about fiscal policy of the government. We will be separately studying this in your intermediate in detail, everything of what happens in the fiscal policy. But for now, just understand that through fiscal policy, most important instrument is budget. The government tries to manage its resources, and if you are not able to manage your resources, then there is a problem. So fiscal policy or budget is nothing but a tool for allocation of resources to be done by the government. All right, understood? Then comes regulatory policy. We'll be studying regulatory policy separately in your chapter 5. So I'll not say many things about it here because we'll be studying in detail. You see, government is a generalist. It is not a specialist. All right, government is a generalist. It is not a specialist. It means the politicians don't have special knowledge about any specific subject. For example, a telecom minister, do you think it is necessary for him to study telecom engineering, or he must know what is the difference between WLL and CDMA and GSM? What is the difference between the frequency of 2G, 3G, 4G and 5G? He doesn't know. He doesn't need to know. All right. Why? Because he is trying to figure out what people want, and whatever people wants, he will go to the specialist who will be appointed by the government to help the minister achieve the goal which is dictated by the people to the politician who has been elected. Simple. So we have TRAI, Telecom Regulatory Authority of India. It is not run by politicians, but it has been established through an act of parliament. What does it do? It will try to regulate the activities of telecom sector. All the policies, provisions will be made TRAI. Likewise, we have Competition Commission of India. which will regulate and promote competition in India. It will try to avoid any kind of monopolies that can come up due to mergers and acquisitions, wherein big company tries to, there is a hostile takeover of smaller company and try to create a monopoly power. Government will not allow that. So you have a specialist there. RBI again is a regulatory institution which has been created through an act of parliament in 1934. Even before India got independent in 1949, we got it nationalized. We have Securities and Exchange Board of India, which takes care of capital markets so that investors have confidence that that money, whatever the stocks they are holding, the mutual funds they are holding, the company cannot just run away with your money. The lot of paperwork and everything have to be done. There is a surveillance done by SEBI. We have for in the insurance sector, we have Insurance Regulatory Development Authority, who will ensure that any kind of fraudulent activities by any insurance company to siphon off money from the innocent policy takers who don't have much knowledge about insurance, their interest will be protected. All right, we have PFRDA, Pension Fund Regulatory Development Authority. What does it do? It will ensure that the money that goes into the national pension scheme, that is invested in a way that it will not jeopardize, and this money will be available at maturity to the people. So these are regulatory bodies. All right, the regulatory institutions are set up through an act of parliament, and these regulatory bodies have to work within the provisions of their independent regulatory institution. Right, clear? Government will not interfere in this institution because these are run by specialists. For example, CA is not a regulatory body, but it's a specialized institution which has been created through a separate act of parliament. Do you think what should be the curriculum of CA examination? What should be how many levels should be there? How much should be the pass percentage, everything? Do you think any politician decides that? Despite the fact it has been created through an act of parliament, it is an autonomous body. It means it has been given the power to decide its own policy. But there is a broader provision beyond which any member of the board or of ICAI is not going to take any action which is illegal. Clear? So that's why we have regulatory policies. All right, now let's understand something here. See, some examples are given. If you to look at it, these are very simple and easy examples. All right, Rohit sells firecracker in Delhi. He was fined by local police for selling firecrackers with an expired trade license. Now you see, if you are an importer and exporter of goods and services, you have to take an import and export license, without which the government will not allow. Now why license have to be taken? Otherwise what will happen? There are many goods which government doesn't allow import of to protect our economy due to various reasons. It could be hazardous to the people, it could be not suitable for consumption, or it could affect the Indian industry, wherein a lot of dumping can happen from other countries. So that's why government, in order to keep a track of what is exported, how much is exported, when it is exported and imported, government have to give you trade license. All right, so if you are dealing with the export and import trade without a license, then there is a penalty for it. Just like you cannot drive your car when your license is expired, despite the fact you know how to drive, you have to renew your license. Sukhbir employed 34 full-time workers in his garage. He was advised by his chartered accountant to pay provident fund contribution to all of them. Yes, by law you have to pay them if there is a provision for the same. Ranga was not allowed to enter Kuwait by immigration official as he had several visas stamping Tel Aviv airport in Israel. You see, Israel is a Jewish state. Israel and Palestine, there is a problem that had led to a problem between the Israel and all other Middle Eastern countries. All right, so if you are entering into Israel, then, and if you are on a passport, you have or you have various stamps that you have gone to Qatar, Kuwait, Iran, Iraq and so on, then they may not allow you. Vice versa also will happen. Say for example, North Korea and China, North Korea and US, problem hai. If suppose you are going to going to US, and but in your passport shows you are an Indian, but your passport shows that you have gone to North Korea 10 times in the last 5 years, US will never allow you entry because it's an enemy country of US. All right, so that is a foreign policy or immigration policy or visa policy, you can call it. Bharat was imprisoned for 3 days in Singapore as he violated traffic rules. All right. You cannot drive cars everywhere how Indians drive car. All right. We are very efficient, by the way. Remember, Indians are very, very efficient drivers. Despite the fact we don't manage, we don't drive in single lanes. The moment we see one gap here, we'll turn there. When one gap there, we'll turn there. No lane. All right. No lane management. But still, if you see the percentage of accidents in India with respect to the number of population, it is way lower than even developed countries. Right. Coke was driven out of India in 1997 as the ruling party was a strong believer of Swadeshi. I think I have given this example in your business economics when I was saying something about it. Right now, students, I think I'm getting a deja vu that I have talked about it in your class somewhere. All right. So Janta government, why? Because they believe after when the Janta government came, after emergency was lifted for a very short tenure, they were very afraid of foreign companies and foreign investment. They said that British came to India not to rule over India but to do business, and in the end we became a colony of the British. We don't want to repeat the same thing over again. So we don't want the British people to come again or any other foreigner to come. So we will only uh, we will grow organically within the close boundary of our country. Now but I've told you that is not possible. We are today integrated world. Today there is a concept of comparative advantage and disadvantage. Everything we cannot produce, we don't have that expertise, so we need foreign investment into our economy. All right, so you cannot have a closed economy. So that's why it created even more problem, and in 1991 we were facing the critical situation of economic collapse that we'll be discussing here in this particular unit. Now, models of public policy economic system followed by different countries: liberal policy or capitalist policy, which are very similar. You see, many countries follow capitalist economy. Capitalist economy you have learnt in business economics. In a capitalist economy, it is also known as free market economy. There is consumer sovereignty. You can do whatever you want. Obviously nothing illegal. What? You cannot start selling drugs. You cannot say I've got the liberty to sell drugs. There is a laissez-faire system. All right, remember I told you, laissez-faire. All right, free from any control. So government doesn't tell you what to produce, when to produce, how much to produce, for whom to produce, where to produce. You can do your business the way you want, as long as you are not doing anything illegal. You're paying your taxes. The government is not going to be bothered about it. So capitalist. US is a capitalist, and you see India was largely, we were following a mixed economic model. Mixed economic model wherein the private and the public sector both will play an integral role together. But we were largely socialist and less capitalist. All right, but today we are becoming more and more capitalist, more and more free economy, more and more liberal. Today, as I've told you before as well, that more than 70 or 60 or 70% of the product that we use either has been imported, but in most cases you will find it has been made in India by foreign company, wherein a foreign company has given some license to an Indian company to produce it, or the foreign firm is coming here and producing and giving it to you. All right, this is nothing. If a foreign investment is increasing in India, that's a sign that your country is becoming more and more market oriented, because big businesses will never go with their investment to those economy where government control is very strong. They don't want government control. Clear? Emerging economies, like emerging economies, the ones which are growing, India is also an emerging economy. Brazil, Russia, India, China, South Africa have distinct policies on government depending on the situation. You see, China, in many books I have written wrongly given China is a socialist economy. No, China is not a socialist economy. China is a communist country wherein there is no democracy. China is a communist country where there is no democracy, but today China has become more capitalist than US. There is a concept of free market economy. As long as you do not criticize the the communist government, as long as you do not criticize the communist government, as long as you don't have any idea about politics, the government will not interfere with you. You can do your business just like in a free market. You cannot criticize the government, but in India, all right, you can criticize the government because government is elected by the people. In China, government is not elected by the people. So that's the beauty of democracy. Likewise in Brazil, but Russia also is a capitalist. It is becoming more capitalist. But again, same rule that China. Only difference is that in Russia there is a democracy. But despite there is a democracy, government control over people's ideas is very, very strong. Socialist and communist states follow highly controlled economic policy. Alright, clear. So as I've told you, North Korea is a communist country and socialist country. Cuba was sometimes back was a socialist and a communist country, but it is becoming more and more liberal as we go ahead. Still a long way to go. Alright, because remember one thing, freedom is one of the most cherished uh, uh, criteria that people love. You may have little less wealth, but you must have a freedom. You must have freedom. You have all the wealth, but you don't have freedom. You'll same thing happen. You are afraid what will happen to me. Like Jack Ma, I gave you example. Till the time he was always, with the Chinese government. They was only appreciating Chinese government. Chinese government said, do whatever you want to do. You can expand your business. He was at par with Jeff Bezos of Amazon. But one fine day he criticized the Chinese government and disappeared for a couple of months. And when he was returned, he found out that many of his businesses have been raided by the communist government. Alright, clear. Now, let's understand about the state of Indian economy before 1991 economic reforms. Now, what I'm going to tell you here is will make you know something about your country that you never knew about. It will make you more aware as a citizen, and this thing you cannot say that I do not know, I don't want to know, because obviously questions are going to be asked. But this is what our country went through. Remember how India liberalized the economy in 1991 economic reforms is still studied in many countries, in many developed countries, in various colleges, whether it's Harvard in US or Cambridge and Oxford in UK. It is taught as an example that a country can turn around so quickly and undo decades of mistakes or economic paralysis. You see, before I go into the liberalization, I'll have to tell you how we went there. You must know. You see, when India got independence, just listen to me. When India got independence, August 15, 1947, we have in next 2 days Independence Day. 1947, we were in dilemma because it was a brand new government. How to rule the country we don't know. Till now we have been protesting against our only work was to protest against the British government. Now we got the freedom. What to do? And it took us 3.5 years, almost 3.5 years to decide what kind of economic model we should follow. Because if we followed the capitalist model, if we adopt a capitalist model, free market economy, government will not do anything. Everything will be done by the market. Every goods and services will produce. Wherever there is demand, supply will happen eventually. Then there is a problem. Why problem? Because significant proportion of the people are living below the poverty line during that time. A large number of people were living in rural India. And very, very few individuals, a handful that you can count on your fingers, they were the rich people. If government would have allowed capitalist economy to function, all these few rich individuals would have ended up owning all the businesses. And the remaining 99.99% of the people would have remained in poverty always. Clear? So what we would have done, we would have simply replaced an outside ruler with a ruler from inside India in terms of big billionaires and trillionaires maybe. Government said we cannot go for capitalist model. But can we go for socialist model? In a socialist society, government controls everything. Government controls everything. Government owns every business. Private investment is forbidden or prohibited. But government is new. The government doesn't know how to rule the country right now. How can government run every business? That is also not a possibility. It means you cannot look towards the west. You cannot look completely towards the east. So what can the government do? So government did what? We will follow the middle path. Buddha said long time back that follow the middle path. Alright. If nothing is clear, follow the middle path. That's what Lord Buddha said. So India took the middle path. Government said that in whichever sector the private investment do not come, I will try to pump in money into that sector and I will try to own and operate that sector. And in whichever sector private sector can perform better, I will allow them to perform without any restriction. So we will have a government sector here, government owned businesses. We have private sector here, privately owned businesses. And in some cases wherein the private sector is not, private investment is not happening, but government also doesn't have all the ability to start that business, they will join hand together and they will start what we know as public private partnership, PPP model. For example, I'll give you an example. A private business can go into production of potato chips, production of perfumes, production of televisions. During that time television was not there, production of radios or whatever, because it can you sold easily and you can get the profit. Alright, there is less gestation period. It means you can recover your money quickly. You don't have to wait for 30-40 years to recover your capital that you have invested. But construction of roads, power lines, expansion of railways, private sector will never put their hand. Why? Because the recovery of investment will happen after 30-40 years. Now, do you think anybody who belongs to the private sector who is having some money will put their hand into any business wherein he will be only able to recover his investment in 30-40 years? No, they'll never do. They'll never do. So what the government will do? Government will say, okay, no problem, I will give you the responsibility to construct the highways, to construct the dams, to construct the power lines. You construct it in 4-5 years, take entire of your cost and plus part of the profit and you go. I will have the ownership. This is public-private participation. So we did that. But despite doing this, India did not grow. India was following a Hindu rate of growth. Now remember, this is not a religious term. You must have heard about Hindu rate of growth. What is Hindu rate of growth? Hindu growth rate. AGR सुना है? Hindu growth rate. Growth rate. When you read economic times, many times this is quoted. It has got nothing to do with the religion Hindu. You see, the name itself, India, we got from river Indus. Part of it flows in Pakistan right now. River Indus in Sanskrit, it is known as river Sindhu. Alright. When the Persians came to India, they did not know how to pronounce Sindhu clearly. So Sindhu got adulterated, mixed, and when it became Hindu, nobody knows. So Hindu means territory of the geographical territory of our country, that is India. So Hindu growth rate, it means the growth rate of India, as simple as that. Alright. Now this growth rate, it created such a bad problem because it became a benchmark for a low growth rate. Today, if Japan grows at a very slow rate of GDP, the Japan also says that we are growing at Hindu growth rate. We are following Hindu growth rate. If China grows, we will see in economic times that China is following a Hindu growth rate. This is an economic term. It has got 0% religious affiliation. Alright. There is no religious attachment to this. That's why you have Hindu newspaper. It's a very secular newspaper. Why Hindu? Because it carries the news of the territory of the river Indus or river Sindhu, that is India. Alright, now you know. So the rate of growth was at max 4%. The rate of growth was 4% during that time. It was very slow. Average was 4%. It means some years the economy was growing at 2%. At some years the economy is growing at 1.5%. Now you may be worried and that you may be thinking that India followed a very good economic policy wherein we have government institution, we have private institution, we have collaboration. Then why India did not grow despite following such a good model? The problem was with the implementation of the policy, and sometimes even the law was a problem. You see, government said that I will allow to private sector to operate, but government put up a restriction there with regard to taking of licensing. Government said you can operate in the private sector, you can set up a manufacturing unit, but you have to apply for a license first. Now why licensing? Because if suppose already some big rich individual who is owning several industries, if he goes to the government and says I need license to produce something extra, some other thing, Government said that you are already a big player. I don't want you to start up another business. It will create a lot of inequality in the country. You continue to do whatever business you are doing for which we have given you the license. I will give this license to somebody who has not yet started the business or somebody who is trying to grow, a new entrepreneur maybe. So government policy or intention was not wrong. Government policy or intention was not wrong, but this policy became a nightmare. Why? Because it became a symbol of corruption for the bureaucracy. Now tell me, if I'm a big businessman and I'm doing a business of manufacturing, say for example textile, do you want I mean do you think I will want any new competitor to start a textile business who will take away my consumers? No, I will not want. So how can I make it difficult for people to get the license from the government? I will bribe all the bureaucrats from the low to the down from the low to the up, from the peons to the politician. I will bribe, and this is not only happened in India. In every country, this has gone through a transition like this. Now I will pay to the politician and the bureaucrats that if this person has applied for a license to open a textile mill, ensure that his file never sees the end of the day. His file will keep bouncing around from one department to another. It will never receive the approval. For a common man to start a business, it will take on an average 7 to 8 years to get the license, if you are lucky enough. That is the number one problem. And not only that, you have to knock on 40 departments of the government of India to get the license. There is a problem. So do you think the small business, the policy was made to help the small businesses, but do you think it will help small businesses? It will never help small businesses. So big businesses, and in fact monopoly happened in India. Let's say you got the license. Let's say you are lucky to get the license. Do you think your misery will end here? So this problem of giving, or this problem of license, it is known as, people got so frustrated, the businessman got so frustrated who wanted to start a business but they were not allowed to. It started calling it, mocking it as license or permit Raj. License or permit Raj. Why they added Raj before it? Because they said that British Raj is gone, but license and permit Raj is not gone. Alright, that is the problem. Now if you get the license, do you think government will allow you to produce? No, government will fix a quota for you. Quota. What is quota? Quota is nothing but quantitative restriction. Quantitative restriction. On what? On production. I mean, what kind of nonsense this is? If you have given me the license, let me produce according to whatever is the demand. Now let's say, for example, government given me the license and I have purchased the machinery that can produce, let's say 20,000 units, 50,000 units every day, let's say. Right now I'm producing 30,000. If suppose the demand increases to 40,000, government will say no. Your quota is only 30,000, or your quota is only 20,000, or your quota is only 10,000. You cannot produce more than the given quota. It means, tell me, government is taking the output decision for the businesses. I am not taking the output decision. So it means if the demand is increasing and I want to produce more, and if I hit the quota, the ceiling, I cannot produce despite the fact I have the capability in terms of capital to produce more. And if I produce more, then there is a penalty. There was excise inspectors used to hide outside the factory gate. And if suppose a company has been given a quota to produce 50,000 units, alright, so one truck passes out of the factory gate and they will count the stock at further away, that the truck has 10,000 units. Now they will wait for, see how many trucks are passing out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 trucks have passed out. So it means today's quota is over. Now the moment the 6th truck passes out, they will stop you. That we have counted 10,000 units in your truck. You have been given a quota to produce only 50,000 units in a day. Now the 6th truck, it means you have produced 10,000 extra. You have violated the quota. We are going to lock down your business, shut down your business. You will go to jail now. Imagine a businessman going to jail for producing, not for crime, but for producing beyond what the government has allowed them to produce. It means if I'm trying to achieve efficiency, which will give me returns to scale, achieve internal economies, business, my, in business economics, we have studied this, then government will send me to jail for achieving internal economies of scale. And in order to avoid my arrest and shut down of the business, what I'll do? I will have to grease the palm of the excise inspector. So this was the Quota Raj. Now tell me, forget about other things that I have not told you yet. If suppose this kind of situation is there in any country, XYZ, any country, do you think private businesses will flourish? Tell me, do you think private businesses will flourish? Private business will never flourish. Will never flourish. And when private businesses are not flourishing, government will be in trouble. Why? Because significant proportion of the revenue of the government comes from activity in the private sector through taxes, direct and indirect taxes. So government is not able to get adequate amount of revenue from taxes. Then what will happen? Problematic situation. Then government said that what I'll do is that government sector will operate. No, if private sector is not keeping, a government sector will operate. But all the public sector undertaking is controlled by the government. There is some politician who is sitting, who is taking care of that, of that public sector undertaking. The IAS officers who are the brain behind running the public sector undertaking, they are controlled by the politician. So basically, most of the private sector, public sector undertaking were running at a loss. More than 80% of them were running at a loss. So private sector is not performing, only some big sector companies are doing well. Small industries are not coming up, medium industries are not coming up, government tax revenue is not increasing, government is running public sector undertaking but at a loss. You have to keep giving salaries of the employees in the public sector undertaking. So what will you do? What will you do? How will you get the money? Problematic situation. Clear. So how will you get the money? You increase taxes. The rate of taxes was so high, you will be really astonished if I tell you that on a commodity like a shampoo, the sales tax, the excise duty was around 60%, 60%. Alright, if you combine the GS, all the indirect taxes and the direct taxes together, people were paying more than 95% of their income as taxes. Both direct and indirect taxes are combined. So don't you think disposable income of the people will go so down, consumption will not happen, demand will not happen, then how the production will happen? And even if production wants to, can catch up, but you are controlling the private sector also through license and quota raj. So problematic situation. The banks were running at a loss. All the banks were running at most of the banks were running at a loss. Why? Because banks were controlled by the government. There was administered interest rate. When interest rate was decided by the government, the lending and borrowing rate. And if any bank government found is indulging in speculative activities, it means government thinks that it's a speculative activities. Whether they're doing or not, there is no proof of it. If government only thinks, then government will take away that bank. Nationalization of bank. We nationalized 20 banks, 14 banks during the 60s and again 6 banks during the 80s. So government was snatching away the banks from the private sector. Alright, problematic situation. We did not allow any foreign investment. India was largely a closed economic model. We did not allow any foreign investment. So when foreign firms are not coming to India, they are not investing. Who will generate employment? We have resources, but there is no exploitation of the resources that is happening. Illiteracy level was very, very high. So skilled manpower and professional was deficient in the country. Again a problem. Import and export was not happening much. Why? Because the rate of customs duty was very, very high. You know what was the peak rate of customs duty? It was 125% peak rate of customs duty. Can you imagine? So high such a rate of custom duty. So on and all, everything was going bad. The financial sector, the manufacturing sector, the service sector, the agriculture sector, the government organization. It is basically a magic that how India was able not to reach the level of collapse before 1991 economic reforms happened. And then we were standing on the brass tack. It means we were standing on the cliff. Any further one step ahead will fall off the cliff. And we were about to implement the financial emergency. So what happens? It's a suspense, or not a suspense, we know what happened, but another story that will come tomorrow from 9:30 to 10:30. I'll tell you what magic was done in the 1991 economic reform that you don't know about. All right, I hope this session has been very interesting for you. I've tried to make it as interesting, as informative as it is. All right, whatever is written, we'll read it afterwards. You will understand if you have understood my story. I'll tell you what is liberalization, what is industrial sector reform, financial sector, and external sector. All right, clear? So same time tomorrow, that is from 9:30 to 10:30, we'll have another special session wherein we'll continue this particular chapter. All right, so for now, good night, take care. If you haven't had your dinner, please have it now and go to sleep, because you have your classes tomorrow morning. All right, I'm talking about the plus students, and those who have not yet subscribed to Unacademy, please do so. So many subscriptions are there, as we have spoken about it at the start of the session. We'll meet tomorrow again and continue this chapter. So good night, take care, bye bye.